Hey everybody, it's your man James, Mr. Coin Treasures, with you for some more video action. As you can tell by the more somber tone here, it's not going to be your usual shtick of fun and good times. This is kind of a more serious thing. It's something I've been doing the last several years since I've been doing the YouTube thing on the regular here. Is I like to take a look back at the end of the year and look back at those who we lost in the comic community. Over the course of the year. It's just something I like to do, as someone who's focused on the comics as much as I am. It just seems the proper thing to do to give a little remembrance to those we lost, for all the great creative works they made for us and things of that nature. And, it's just something I like to do. I feel it's important. So I like to take this look back. But I hope you all are having a very good New Year's Eve. I hope you're getting ready to go out and do some celebrating, but before we celebrate, let's do a little remembrance. And as we remember, let's also remember this, that I've got some guests with me tonight, this time, unlike in the years past where I've done it by myself. I got some special guests with us. And of course, here's a man who always remembers because he remembers the good days along with me because we're both old. It's my good friend, Pops. Pops, my friend, welcome.
Hey, brother. It's great to be here. Thanks for including me. Hail to everyone out there. And let's have a good time talking some comic book stuff. Maybe if it's a little bit of a somber news, we can at least reflect on some of their positives.
Exactly. And of course, if we're talking art, we would want to be right to have an artist with us. So of course, let's bring in the man himself, the myth, the legend, Mr. Dan Lawlis. Dan.
Hello. Hi. So, you know what, guys? I'm so glad to be on the show, but not featured on the show.
Well,
hey, whoa, because
always one day I'll be featured on the show, Dan. I promise you that. All of us will be featured on the show one day.
Who do we lose this year? Well, there's Lawlis. Oh, dang it. Okay.
It's the one show you want to be on, but not be about. That's what it was. That's what.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to be about.
Okay, well,
Aaron was. That's what Aaron Lepercy said yesterday. He was like, because I mentioned this show, and that's what he said is like I'm glad I'm not on that, featured on that show this
time. Well, what we're going to see here is I got all the info for our people here. You're going to be some of the people, it's not too surprising they're gone now when you hear their age and whatnot. But then there are some guys that you're like, whoa, that's a little closer to me than I would like it to be. So. So let's get on into it here. And what I'll do is, of course, I'll take me off the screen because no one ever wants to see my ugly mug. That's not what this is about. But we're going to go ahead and share the screen here. And we're going to bring up our first creative.
Wait, why do we want to see you?
Well, nobody does. That's why I'm taking me off.
Well, go back on. We want to see your face.
And
by the way, this list you sent me was amazing. I couldn't believe how many really great artists this year. I mean, it's extraordinary.
Yeah, and every year, Dan, I'll tell you, since I've been doing this, every year it tends to be more and more people who are great ones are just going. It's we just reached that time. Those guys who were big in the 20th century, they're all leaving us now. So
yes,
and here we are. We're starting off with one that's again, many of us know him, though we may not want to admit that we know him. It's the great Doug Snyed, who is best known for his cartooning in Playboy magazine. We all have the joke that we all read Playboy for the articles, but I always said, I never read it for the articles. I always got Playboy for the cartoons, and Doug Snyed were among some of the best that I always thought were in the magazine. He's a Canadian, and he showed his portfolio back in 1963 to the editors of Playboy, and just hoping to do just a couple illustrations, and he ended up doing over 450 cartoons for the magazine until 2026, when I guess he retired. And just he was 93 years old, so he was not exactly a Greek tragedy, but yeah, just a guy with a huge body of work. His style, the minute you see his art, you just know it's him. And what I like about him is he could do the funny, cartoony stuff like you see here. But look in the background there with Conan O'Brien in this image. He could do really good likenesses of characters, of real people.
Yeah,
that's something that's hard to do. I know a lot of artists have trouble with likenesses, but he made it look easy. He's got a very soft and fluid art style here. Again, just like you, Dan, he makes his women very beautiful. He knew how to make them beautiful, even in a cartoony type of way. And, again, just for me, I mean, Playboy magazine would not have been the same without Doug Snyed for all those years. So,
not exactly.
Pops, what do you got to say? Any thoughts on the passing of Doug Snyed, the Playboy?
I just wanted to add that I was I was always a fan too of his work over in Dark Horse Comics on Nocturnals. I thought Nocturnals had some solid stuff, and there were some really cool covers and stuff they did over there too. But yeah, these cartoons are just iconic. Everybody has seen this. It's picked up one of those magazines for sure. So yeah.
Hey, James, can you stack the us to the side, possibly?
Let's see. I don't like to mess with it that way because it kind of. Let's see. How do
Just
I
so
do
we're not
that?
in. I'm not in the art.
Okay, let me. Okay.
There we go.
There we go. There we go. Okay, I just don't like messing with the format.
I kind of want to read it too. Like, what was the joke? You know.
Yeah, it says Conan O'Brien can't keep a guy up as long as I can. It's men's humor, baby. Men's humor. That's what we all love.
Yeah. She is really cute and beautiful, though. It's like that's there's a charm to this, and she's of course she's sexy too.
It's naughty, but it's not like vulgar.
Right.
It's sexy, but it's not like crass.
It's not. It's not totally gratuitous. Yeah.
It's like a fine line to walk. You're trying to like it's like with a wink and a nod, but not too heavy. And that's a hard thing to do. It's like for a lot of guys, they either go too far one way or not enough, or but he always knew how to walk that fine line between sexy and over the line, and he knew how to walk that line. And again, it's just another aspect to his art that I think I always appreciate. There's like a naive innocence to it, even though it's not anywhere near innocent. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, this is very typical of the era. This kind of comic, this kind of cartooning, as in all the advertising magazines and everything like that. So it's just the Playboy's version of it. But yeah, these guys were really skilled. I mean, they were really kind of fun, kind of funny.
Yep, and he was our first one this year to go, but very
sadly
more
not examples of it. You got more examples of his art.
No, I've only got one example of everybody because there's so many we lost, like 24 people. So I mean, that's a lot of people to cover. So we go to our next one here, and this is Mort Künstler, who's American painter and poster illustrator, comic artist. This is probably one of his best known pieces. Is this cover to Mad Magazine with the joke of Jaws? That's like one of his big things, and he's done a whole lot of stuff. He did create posters for movies like the Poseidon Adventure, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3. He's done a whole lot of stuff. He was born in Brooklyn, New York in 1927. He was 97 when he passed.
97. Wow.
97. These guys. I mean, some of these guys they've been around a while, but like the 70s was sort of his big heyday. Like I said, besides the movie posters, he did covers for Newsweek and Reader's Digest. Of course, he did Mad Magazine with this classic image that everybody knows. He's done a whole lot of stuff, and he even did stuff into the 80s and 90s where he was doing like the Blue and the Gray, the televised series. He did like the cover for that miniseries, that image that you saw for the Blue and the Gray. I mean, that's so a painter of well-renowned that could go either the serious route or, as you can see, the more comedic route. And I just when I think of his style, I will always think of this image, because he had just such a great, like with you, Dan, such a great eye for color. I love like the way he laid this out here, and of course, the colors are perfect. I love the color he used for the tongue, with the shark. That's just hilarious, and it's just a lot of fun. And again, he's like one of these guys who was around for a long time, doing stuff like as early as the 50s even. So, I mean, this is like one of our last ties to like the golden age of type comic stuff. And so, it's important to remember these guys because these are the guys who helped like, instill, I think, in a lot of people, the fun of visual storytelling.
Yeah, it's truly like an American, art form. That's for sure. Now it looks like he painted that the Mad Magazine. What's the character's name? I forget.
Alfred E. Newman.
Alfred E. Newman. He painted him very well. He did a good job of that. So this is a pretty good painting overall, just the skill of it,
Yeah, and you can see right here, he signed it. This is his signature he used for such things called Mutz, M-U-T-Z. That was his nom de guerre for Mort Künstler.
Okay.
He does a lot of war and like Civil War. He did work on God and Generals. His real claim to fame for me, I found him in the 90s because he actually is one of the few people who got to do his own postage stamp. So if you Google it, there's a 90s postage stamp. It's like the Buffalo Soldier. It's I remember getting one and flipping it. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
super cool. Cool to have a postage stamp on your resume. That's pretty unique.
Yeah, that's not something you're going to hear for a lot of guys. No.
Yeah, you got to be a classic for that. Yeah.
So we'll move on to our next here, and this one kind of hurt me a bit because it's Jerry Eisenberg, and you may not necessarily know that name too well, but he did a lot in the world of animation for like a Hanna-Barbera stuff, Hanna-Barbera cartoons and comics, and of course I know him best for his work on, of course, one of my all-time favorite cartoons is Thundarr the Barbarian. So, but he did a lot of work with character designs on like the Wacky Races, the Super Friends. He did layout work for the Jetsons, Huckleberry Hound, Johnny Quest, the Perils of Penelope Pit Stop. I mean, it was there like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon he didn't work on in some form? I don't think there was. And then even later, he went on to do other stuff, working on productions for like the Muppet Babies and some the House of Mouse for Walt Disney, John, and then even in the later years, Johnny Bravo, Tom and Jerry Kids, and some of the Scooby-Doo direct-to video movies that came out in like the early aughts. He worked on all those as well. And he died at the age of 87. So again, not someone who was a Greek tragedy of like dying before his time, but like again, just
nice, good age.
But he just a huge presence in the realm of animation, and like just a lot of characters that would cross over from and into comics, and he just he had a great style in what he did. I mean, like I said, he really understood the dynamics of how to make something exciting. Like I said, he helped make Thundarr what he is. He did some of the character designs on Thundarr, in fact. So just a guy who really understood, the importance of how to tell a story visually.
Yeah, I remember liking Thundarr. I mean, and Wacky Races and all that kind of stuff.
Yes, like I said, in the 60s and 70s, he was highly prolific. That was like his prime time, and just like I said, when I heard he passed, because I mean I still watch the old reruns on this channel on my cable called Boomerang, and they play reruns of Thundarr the Barbarian, and every episode at the very end when they do the credits, his big name was on there, Jerry Eisenberg, and when I saw the name, I'm like, no, not Jerry Eisenberg, not from Thundarr, and it's like, yep, it is, and I was like, wow, just another piece of my childhood taken from me.
Yeah. Sounds like a long, wonderful career, though. So.
Oh yeah, I mean, like I said, there's people who would love to have like the kind of accreditations in their career that he has. How about you, Pops? How about you, Pops? Another piece of your childhood taken from you as well.
Yeah, this was close to home. We've talked about Thundarr and many other Hanna-Barbera cartoons over on my channel a couple of times. I've regularly talked about how much my grandkids are now. I've gotten them addicted to Wacky Races and some of that vintage cartoon from that era. So yeah, this one hit close to home because he's really contributed a lot to my life, but I passed that on to my grandkids because I really wanted to have, actually for Christmas, it's not even part of their Christmas gifts. I've just been stockpiling a ton of these old animation series that have gone on sale on DVD. You try to get some of the fancy versions, they're expensive, but you can like stock up for like $10, got the whole series of Jetsons, which he worked on, tons of stuff from that time, from Yogi Bear, stuff that we just, it's DVD. They can have, get them hooked on as well. And he was pivotal to getting some of that stuff work and character design as well, not just getting it done as a producer, but also like the input and the creative part as well. So yeah, RIP.
Yep.
Hey, can we state our ages? Do you mind, Pops? Just so people know, like what I'm trying to figure out what when you were a kid, and when I was a kid, and when James was a kid.
I'll be 52 in just under a month.
Okay, I'm 60.
55. Yeah, 55.
Oh, so we got a good range here.
Well,
Dan is looking sharp for 60. Dan is looking good,
except for my back.
Well, you're the one playing in the ice.
That's the reminder that he's over 60 now. Is the back? He doesn't look it, but his back reminds him every time.
Well, that I've had that earlier than that, many years. So,
but we'll move along here and go on to our next tribute. Here is editor and writer K.C. Carlson, who again I know him best. Again, working on Legion of Superheroes. I remember reading him in the late 90s. This whole Lee Moder era with Jeffrey Moy over on Legionnaires at the time, and they were like the two books from the Legion of Superheroes. And this was the period I read the book, And but he's done a lot of editing for characters like Superboy and Batman, and he was a big DC man. KC Carlson. I knew the name very well. I grew up with his touch on these characters, and again, he's the kind of editor who always. I don't think I ever remember his book ever missing a deadline. That's hard. That's a hard thing to get today, is to get guys who actually care about making sure stuff comes out on time and that it's well crafted. I mean, he really put a lot of effort into making sure that the books he worked on were well done. And he's the kind of editor that we need more of today in the industry, I think, and we don't have. We have guys who either don't care or just there to cash a check, and they don't have any interest, or they're activists pretending to be, serious professionals. And, but he was the actual professional. He's like one of those classic guys, the guys who are like the backbone of the industry. You needed guys like KC Carlson working for you to keep the train running, as it were. And, like I said,
you need people to put the readers first, really.
Exactly. He always put what would the audience want is how he would approach it. And it was in his stories that he wrote, like this issue here we see with a great cover by Alan Davis, by the way, or even just the way he edited the books that he worked on. Just the type of guy that's what you want in an editor, is a guy who has that professionalism, and it's something that's very much lacking today. And we're all for it.
Was his career mainly at DC?
Yes, he was mostly pretty much a DC guy. He did a lot of DC work.
And pivotal for stuff that I loved. I love Sandman. I love V for Vendetta, and he was in on all that too, making sure that it was done and done well, and just helping deliver great stuff in an era that we were loving every minute of it. So yeah, great.
Do we have
legacy.
the years? I'm sorry. Do we have the years that he was at DC?
I don't have the years of when he was at DC, but like I said, I do know in the 80s and 90s for sure he was working at DC.
Okay.
And he was 68 years old when he passed. So again, he's like one of those guys that's a little more towards the line of like us guys talking about this right now. We don't like to hear those kind of numbers because it looks closer than we'd like it to be. Talking about exactly. Doug Sneed passing away at 93, you're like, oh, 93.
Yeah, that's plenty of time. Yeah.
That's plenty of time. But 68. Wait a minute. That's a little too close.
Wait a minute. Hey, 8 years. Yeah, shit.
Yeah, especially if you're throwing your back out, Dan.
Yeah. Well, it'll get better.
Okay, we'll get on to our next one here, which again, this is kind of somewhat of a biggie. Jim Silke.
Oh yeah.
And it just his
great artist.
Style. I mean, he has such a great illustrative style. He's like one of the last great like comic book illustrator type illustrators. Like the guys who do like the illustration style. Like in the vein of guys like Frazetta and Boris Vallejo and Julie Bell, these great painterly type illustrationists who actually could also do like comic serialization. And he was one of the last ones that really did that in this time. Like Rascals in Paradise, here we got. I mean, you can see right here just beautiful woman, perfect anatomy, beautiful blends of color. He has that same eye you do, Dan, for like just very beautiful color theory in what he was doing. You see, you got like
his women were gorgeous. They were just beautiful and cute, and they were just really really neat.
Yeah, and of course he did the Betty
Exotic
Page
too.
Miniseries. Was it Betty Page, Queen of Egypt, for Dark Horse back in like the late '90s? I remember that one. That was a good one. Yeah, just his women were timeless. This is like, again, just like something we don't see anymore, is guys who really understood the female form and how to make it beautiful and vivacious, but again, not necessarily be crass about it.
Yep, it was not too gratuitous, and the faces were beautiful and exotic too. I don't know if you heard me say that word, but that's what I would use his.
We'll close up on this so you can see like there's the face right there.
Right. Yep.
He also tried his hand at some screenwriting. He worked on Sahara and King of Solomon Mines, the Indiana Jones knockoff era there in the 80s, but neither of those took off for him. But kudos to doing something that ambitious as well.
Now, did he write a Death Dealer novel? I think.
I'm not sure. I don't have that in my information that I have available, but I do know that he was nominated for 4 Grammy Awards for Best Album Design. And he won one in 1962 for his cover of Judy at Carnegie Hall.
Yeah, he sure did.
So, again,
he sure did do some
a man whose illustrated style could translate not just into comics, but into, like you say, like movies and music and just across various mediums of entertainment.
Yeah, there's 4 different ones that he worked on: Prisoner of the Horned Helmet, Lord of Destruction, Tooth and Claw, and Plague of Knives.
Yeah, so I read them, and they were pretty good.
Yeah, thank you, Google.
Yep, he passed away at the age of 93. So again, another one who had a very long, distinguished career. But yeah, one of the last great illustrators that I recall, in my comic reading days of like the illustrator type artist. He was like one of the last ones, and you don't see his style of artist anymore.
Unfortunately, you don't. Unfortunately,
yeah, very much. But we got to move on, so we all move to the next one here, and this one's Hy Eisman. He was our next one to go, and he was he's probably best known here, as you can see, for his work on Popeye the Sailor. But he also did Little Lulu, Little Iodine, the Katz and Jammer Kids. I mean, he did a lot of strip work. He did let's see, Hogan's Alley. He did that. Just lots of stuff. He was and he actually became a teacher at the Joe Kubert School of Comic and Graphic Art.
That's how I found out about him. That's how I found out. I was interviewing someone who was an artist and working on a comic book. And you're talking about Joe Kubert. We ended up down the rabbit hole talking about that. And mentioned him. I kind of jotted the name down, and I was like, oh man, he looked on Little Lulu, looked on Popeye. So it's like, it's one of those things too. I don't know if anyone else gets. I mean, obviously, I think you two do. But for those of you out there, if you get a little nerdy on this stuff, take some notes, do a little legwork. Next thing you know, you end up with all these like, Venn diagrams of stuff that you actually love, and just maybe you put a name to it. So yeah, that's how I found him.
Mm-hmm.
He won the 1975 National Cartoon Society Award for Best Humor Comic.
Very good. Wow.
That was one of his little laurels of his career. But like his best known work, of course, is with Popeye the Sailor. And again, he shows you right here with this strip, this Sunday strip, the classic. This is what I've always loved so much about comic art is the graphic of the storytelling ability. Like each panel kind of tells its own story, and I like that. That's what you need when you're doing comic book art. You need this fundamental right here of understanding how to lay out and progress a story to make it feel natural. Like the way he cuts away, from a medium shot to a shot here in shadow, and then he gets it back, and then up to a close up. You got to know how to work those camera angles to like add the urgency or the interest of the scene to make it, something you got to keep on going to the next one. That's the flow, as it were, the flow of the panels.
Yeah. And clarity is important.
Yes.
And like when you just mentioned that pullback scene, that's also gives you a little sense of time passing. So these are little things, little tricks that they developed over the years that kind of give you that sense of realism that adds to the joke. So the joke will land, but anything that distracts from your story is bad. And so this is good stuff,
Yep. And so we'll go to our next one here. And this one touches me a bit because I just remember their work so well for this is artist Tod Smith.
Yeah. Who,
he did a lot of great work. He worked on, Dark Ark, of course, as you see here, Omega Men, The Punisher. I mean, he was a guy he never really got his chance at like a really big time book. He didn't get a Batman run or a Spider-Man run or, an Avengers run, nothing like that. He was the guy who was the permanent fill-in artist type of guy where like when you need a guy to step in and make that deadline, he's the guy you called. And the Dark Hawk series was probably his biggest run, which you can see here if Dan's noticing right down here where his signature is. Look, he's inked by one of your favorite guys, Ian Aiken.
Oh, really? Ian. Okay. Yeah. Ian, of course, inked me a lot on Dark Horse.
See, there it is. There it is right there.
And Agents of Law. Yeah. Ian's, I don't even know where Ian is right now, but he was just a wonderful inker would really capture your pencils. You got back what you delivered to him in pencil, and it's a beautiful ink drawing. So
yeah, like I said, for me, is his Darkhawk run is what I'll always remember him for. Because the Mike Manley was the original artist of the series, and he left a kind of a big hole to fill. And I think that that Tod Smith really stepped up to the plate and like upped his own game, because I'd seen his work before this and it was good, but he brought it to another level working on Darkhawk, I think, because it became a regular for him for the next couple of years. And so, he really kind of upped his game. I love his shot here of Venom. I love the pose, the way he's got the tongue slinging around. I mean, I just love that. He really had a good fundamentals of how to make a really impressive comic book cover.
Yeah, this is really, really well done. It's impressive. And yeah, I like it. So great stuff, man.
How about you, Pops? Any thoughts on Tod Smith?
Yeah, he's from that era that was just so pivotal from the 90s. And then, of course, like you said, he never really got the spotlight on him. But, obviously he did work in Wolverine and Punisher, which were huge back in the day. So, just couldn't break through and get his own little time as a run, string together some issues. But made his mark when he could. And a lot of credit to that, for sure. Did a lot of great work.
How old was he?
He was
young.
72 years old.
Okay.
Yeah,
So,
younger.
Not too much younger, but maybe
if they're below 80, man, that's that's below the.
Well, I know someone who's a nurse, and
that's rough.
I know someone who's a nurse, and she said that when she first started out her career, they've oh my gosh, we've got a 90-year-old on the floor, that was like a big deal. And now she's like, it's like 100. There's lots of 100-year-olds there. So people are living longer.
Our life expectancy has inched up a lot, and it's going to get better, I think. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of getting better, let's move on to our next here. This one is inker Rob Stull, who he's done again a lot of work. He did for Marvel, like Slingers. Right here is probably one of his best calling cards. He also worked on X-Force, Iron Man. He worked on Telos with the late great Mike Wieringo as well. So he's more to that style that works well with someone who does a like an anime or a manga-esque type of style. Like you can see here with Chris Cross.
Chris Cross is a fantastic artist.
Yeah, his inking works very well with someone who has styles that are in that vein. I think he's always worked with a lot of artists who had that. Adam Polina on X-Force, Kieran Grant on Iron Man. So he worked with a lot of great artists who had like that manga-esque feel in their work, and he always did a great job inking the stuff, as I recall. And I actually, it's funny. I actually almost said I met him, but I knew we had a Comic Art Fans account, and I remember one time he put up some pages for sale, and I actually bought one of the pages from him. So I actually bought directly from him off of Comic Art Fans, which I thought was kind of interesting to have an artist where I buy from him off of there, because most artists, they either have reps who sell for them or they have their own websites. But he did it off Comic Art Fans, and I just thought it was kind of interesting that a guy who had made it into the major leagues here, as you can see, would operate that way. But he was 58 when he passed, so he's
real young.
Yeah, he was definitely on the younger side for sure, and. Like I said, just another way. He didn't get, again, just like with Tod Smith, he didn't get that definitive run. But unlike Tod Smith, he at least got to work on some bigger stuff. I said like X-Force and Iron Man and stuff like that. So he at least got up there to where he was working on some big time characters and stuff and getting out that way. And again, just another consummate professional. Always made a deadline. Didn't drag things down. And like I said, his style. But you can tell by the artists he worked with that he had that manga flair in his work, and he worked well with people who did. And just that's what you want, I guess, is you want somebody who can understand, how to approach certain styles in a certain way. And that was definitely what I think he was. He was someone who understood how to approach those manga-esque styles. And I always would like to see him work with Joe Mad or somebody like that, someone who has that style that he never. I think he would have been a good fit for somebody like that. Any thoughts on Rob Stull there, Dan?
Not really. I didn't know his work, so but it looks really quite nice. So,
any thoughts, Pops?
No, this one actually kind of got me a little bit too. had Googled his name and didn't, recognize obviously a ton of these titles and stuff he's worked on, but it seems like it's a little more modern from my like Nexus era. So it's stuff that I've seen, like I've seen some of the stuff, but it wasn't really like, something I have in my boxes in the other room or anything like that. So, but yeah, real young. That's always sad, hope that people can, have some more time to, churn out some good stuff. And he's taken from us pretty young.
Yeah, well, we go from the very young to the very old. Up next here, we got Jack Katz, who's one of our last connections to the golden age of comics. I mean, he's been working in comics since like the 1940s, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So I mean, just tons and tons of stuff. Yeah, I mean, he was impressed by Jim Steranko. And so he entered mainstream. He had been in mainstream comics and left, but then he was so impressed with Steranko, it brought him back in for a second time. And he found work with Stan Lee at Marvel, and he worked on Submariner, Monsters on the Prowl, Adventure into Fear, and then he went over to DC and did House of Secrets. And even did some illustrations for Jim Warren at Warren Publishing. So I mean, again, a guy who, he did a lot of stuff early on. Like the war comics type of stuff with guys like Joe Simon and Jack Kirby. Adventures in the Darkness, stuff like that. He did a lot of stuff in like the 50s with like war and stuff. And then in this like the late 60s, early 70s, he moved over to superheroes and horror. Again, just a guy who had a large, huge body of work.
Yeah. Now I can imagine he's probably was up there, huh? Then.
Yes, he was. He was 97.
Yep. Yeah. Wow. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, I met George a couple of times at some of the conventions. Super humble guy, but you know how Golden Age books are. If you look at some of these things, they're just so intricate. There's so much work paid to just backgrounds and stuff. And one of my funny story about Jack, I had him sign a book, and it was some trash copy of something I could, because Golden Age books are hard to even find sometimes. But he doesn't really sign his name. He just printed his name. It just says Jack Katz, but it wasn't like there's no fluid cursive writing at all. It was just almost as though he drew his name. It was interesting. So
but I just, these old time guys, I mean, like you think of the golden age and you think it's like a very simplistic style, but I mean, look at this detail, like in that skeleton and this guy's face.
In the curtain. Dude's putting thread lines in the curtains and in the window, and just it's epic stuff, man. Dude was cool.
Now the funny thing is, I would imagine he, like a lot of guys, just thought of it as a job. This is my job.
Yeah. And
but he clearly loved it. When you're putting, like you said, thread line, brush lines in the curtains like that and stuff, you're enjoying yourself. Well,
I mean, just look at this candle. I mean, look at that.
Exactly. Yeah.
That is insanity. It's But
he's just enjoying himself. You can tell. Yeah.
Which is the most important thing. But I mean, I just think it's funny because you've got guys who like they've got like a style that's so detailed and all, and yet these guys were just as detailed. Sometimes you think of like I said, you think of the golden age, and you think of like very simplistic styles, but there's actually underneath that style is a lot of depth that I think a lot of people never really pick up on.
Yeah, it's an era of stuff that I really try to encourage. I need to go back and do a bunch of golden age. I just did a thing on my channel where I just pull up a random golden age book and we just look at the art and just be in ooh and ah, these random, not even like a Bernie Wrightson book or anything like that, just some random book. And there's so much detail and stuff that was expected and part of things. A lot of them have incredible backgrounds in art and painting and advertising and all those elements. And it just comes out. So Jack was like that. And he taught, I guess he taught later in his life. And again, like I said, so humble, man. Never thought he was anything. And I'm like, man, you just so many cool things, dude. But yeah. Good run.
I think that was just, I think his generation were like that. They never really looked at themselves in that egotistical manner that future generations kind of tend to do. They were very much more self-reserved about such things.
Yeah. But even today, though, I mean, the comic book artists have never been accepted into the mainstream of art as a real legitimate art. And the only people really appreciate it are the comic book readers. Really are.
True enough.
Yeah, that's fair.
But we go on now to our next participant here, and it's George Barr, who again, another illustrator. Another one of those illustrator types doing fantasy type books. Like when I saw this image, I just immediately felt gravitated to it. I love the bright pink and mauves in the background. Against this even brighter, robot. Just I like that look. It had
it's a great robot. Yeah, and the interesting thing is this is all before Photoshop. You can do those little starbursts now pretty easily in Photoshop, but he was doing this stuff looks like in paint. That's paint,
Yes,
so
that
it's pretty
is.
incredible.
And he worked on tons of books, Forgotten Fantasies and Asimov science fiction, amazing stories, Dragonlance Adventures, the Dungeons and Dragons game books.
Yeah.
I mean, he's like one of the fantasy masters of illustrative art.
Yeah, and look at the composition of this piece too. Just it's well balanced. It has the important element of the violence balanced by the figure and the angle of the figure. Now it looks like he signed it here. That's one thing I always was kind of didn't like about some of the books where the signet you didn't know who the artist didn't get the credit but they should, because it's such a big part of when I know about you guys when you read a novel. If it's a good, like a Frazetta or something, that picture that they've created is something I use when I'm imagining the book. And this is, this robot is just fantastic, really.
Well, if I had to characterize his style, like I said, when I first saw this, whimsical, I think is the word that comes to mind when I see this image. It's whimsical.
I didn't recognize the name when you had first sent it to me, and as I started to look, I started recognizing a ton of these fantasy things that he's worked on. I mean, obviously you mentioned some of that with D&D and Amazing Stories and stuff, but man, he had so there was a lot of images that I looked and was like, oh yeah, I've seen that before. Yeah, I've seen that before. So yeah, just didn't click, but long resume of some work that's been done.
He was 88 when he passed, so again, another one of the elder statesmen, as it were. But he's one of those kind of guys, I think, that it's you don't know the name, but you know the work. Like when you see that image, you're like, I know that image, but you don't know who the artist is, but you're like, I know that image. And that's how I think he was. He was like one of those types. And
common for illustrators, really, though, common for illustrators. With really just there's only a few exceptions that you would kind of looked for the name or wanted to know the name. But this is kind of like, it's one that you appreciate, enjoy, but not necessarily delve into,
Well, here's something you may find interesting, Dan. He used an unusual layered technique in his style. First penciling the drawing very lightly, then redrawing it with a black ballpoint pen, complete with tonal variations. Then the colors were painted in, almost as if doing a coloring book exercise. Barr himself noted it that way. This is how he approached his art that way. So,
yeah, it's unique style. It's very, very unique. Yeah.
And
do you know if he's using oils or acrylics or?
I'm not sure. It didn't say how what mediums he used, but like this is I found out this is how he came up with his style, is how he developed this, and he's been characterized as being influenced by Arthur Rackham, Haynes Bach, and here's one, Virgil Finlay. Okay. So another one, another one of those great, illustrative artists, just one generation influencing the next.
Yeah, this looks like acrylics.
I imagine it probably is. I think that's probably what you would have had back in those days when he was doing.
Well, yeah, and all the paints. You can, some people use oils, some people use a gouache, and other people use acrylics. Some people use dyes and watercolors. Dr. Martens and stuff. So but this has it's not a dye. It looks like it's paint. But the acrylics kind of had a little less smoothed outness, what you call,
Yeah, a little more like of a textured feel.
Yeah, a little more pasty, almost like you a feel of it. Now that can kind of happen with gouache too, but it's a different look with gouache. Yeah, I'm sure this is acrylics, but it's a nice paint for reproduction. Actually, it reproduces up pretty well.
Well, the next few we get into is it's going to really hit me hard. It's like this is what I call my hardball section when I heard these next few names, and it starts out with like one of the hardest ones for me to have to do. The great Jackson Guice. That was a gut punch this year when I heard he passed. He was only 63, Dan. He was only 63. And I mean, his body of work. I mean, do we even have to go into the Micronauts, sort of the Swashbucklers, X Factor, the New Mutants, Resurrection Man. He worked on adventure at Action Comics for Superman. He worked on the Death of Superman storyline. Of course, Iron Man here. I mean, it's just the list.
And one of my favorite Doctor Strange artists. Absolutely.
Yes. I actually own a piece of original art of his, and it's a Doctor Strange page from his Sorcerer Supreme run. Yes.
Yeah.
One that is
really
is penciled and inked by him.
Yep.
But I mean, I remember when
his last thing was I had the honor of being in the same book with him with the Two-Fisted Manly Tales.
Yes.
He did a story of that.
But I mean, just this one was a gut punch because he's probably one of my top 10, maybe even top 5 comic artists of all times, like for my favorites. And I never got to meet him, and I always wanted to, and I never got the chance, and now I never will. It's like it was so sad when I heard he passed. I couldn't believe it. I
wonder if there's interviews online of him.
I'm sure there are.
Yeah,
I'm sure there are. But like the first time I saw his work was on the issue of Flash, which I got off the newsstand. And even then I kind of knew it was something special, although the story didn't strike me too much because, Mike Barron kind of wrote Wally as kind of a jerk. So I didn't really, sympathize with the character very much. But then the next time I saw him was on Iron Man and inked by Bob Lane, just like, he just blew me away. I'm like, man, this guy is awesome. And so I made sure to like kind of try to follow his career over the years. And, the thing that always gets me is like this image is a perfect example, is the Graboty Fritz, as I call it. Like, look at all that stuff in the background, like all little pieces and all little bits. And I mean, who does that today?
Yeah, well, not a lot. Not a lot of time to do it. That's the problem.
Yeah.
I mean, it's funny though. You look at his stuff when you see it though. It's very recognizable in everything he does. The tech and the people and the figures. Yes. Well,
and again, it's just the details in the backgrounds. Like that's the thing that it really always got me about his work. It's like he made you see a lot of guys be able to do like a good figure, and then like the background is just like a color, and that's all it is. And they try to get as many panels without any backgrounds in them as they can because they don't want to waste time on it.
Well, if you're not getting paid that much, you got to cut corners. But
but like he always did stuff like this, like you see on the cover with tons of stuff in the background and highly detailed too. Like on my Doctor Strange page, there's a scene of like windows, and like they look like almost like they're like real life windows, and there's a brick wall that he lined out every single brick and put little dots of texture on all the bricks. And it's like, who does that? Nobody does that anymore. So I mean,
if you love any of this stuff, I mean, there's so many. We mentioned Dark Horse again, Terminator. He worked on AVP stuff. Worked over on. So there's that Alex Ross Universe X stuff he did. He worked on some of that stuff as well. Went back over to DC, did some work on Aquaman, which is great. It's just everywhere he went, just made a mark and just did something really good. And
I think the greatest testament to his art is that like right up until the end, he was still in demand. He was still working. There was no like a period where like Jackson Guice went 4 years or something without doing any comic work because nobody wanted him. He was always working. It may not always been for a big league publisher, but he was always getting work, and he never seemed to be not working. And so I mean, I think that's the best testament any artist can hope for, is like you're just in demand all the time. And that's like the best thing I could say. Like, again, just his style alone tells you why he would be.
Yep.
Agreed.
So, like I said, this was my gut punch for the year. This one, and I got
it was a little rough to hear that one.
Yeah, and then I got then this one came shortly thereafter. Peter David.
Yeah, incredible legend.
I mean, again, a guy. The list of his accomplishments, the work he did. Aquaman, Supergirl. Spider-Man 2099, X Factor. Fallen Angel over at IDW. I mean, Young Justice at DC, just tons of, but of course his calling card will probably always be his magnificent Hulk run that, just basically redefined the character for a generation.
Yeah. 12 years. I mean, we can't get a year out of a comic book in some of these mainstream companies now. And this dude was doing this for over a decade. That's insane. Incredible. Working with all of the greats, with, McFarlane and, I mean, just Dale Keown and Gary Frank. Yeah, just so much stuff.
Adam Kubert.
There's just so
I
many
actually think
things.
I did a story of his, like it was Aquaman, but I never got credited for it because I did it for my buddy Kirk Jarvinen. He was a penciler, but he was having, he was just not feeling so secure. So I did breakdowns for that issue and gave them to Kurt, and he drew it. But I believe that was written by
yes, that was
Peter.
Aquaman Time and Tide, the 4-issue miniseries that would set up the 1994 series that Peter David would write.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I did a story, and I remember really being amused by the story. It was really, really good. So I really liked his writing. It was just fun,
Yeah,
fun. He didn't forget that comics should be fun, and it was so unique, so different.
Well, his real skill I saw was how he was able to you could have like a serious, heartfelt moment, and then the next he could quickly switch it up and do something where it was funny.
Yes, yes.
You got
it had a human spectrum of
yes.
of different ways of delivering these entertainment stories. It was just incredible. So
Yeah, like I said, just I know my wife loved his Hulk run, especially during the Pantheon era. That was like her favorite Hulk run. It's like for her, the Hulk is the Pantheon era with him and Dale Keown and Gary Frank. That's her Hulk.
Yeah,
and it's like I said, for an entire generation, for Gen X, he is the Hulk writer. There is no one else.
Yeah, I can imagine. He was very unique. Like I said, he put his stamp on things. He put a mark on things, and he obviously influenced the character for a long time in the comic books, anyways.
Yes, he was 68 years old, just 68.
Yeah.
But I'd heard he had a long health battle. So, I mean,
he was always struggling there for a while in the end there.
In a way, I mean, it's sad, but it's also kind of, I kind of feel like, maybe it's just better than to sit around and suffer, because at least not suffering.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah.
But yeah, and then of course, as bad things always come in threes, here was my third bad one that really hit me. Jim Shooter.
Mm-hmm.
I just,
this was still...
Yeah, I'm still feeling this one because, I mean, this is a guy who wasn't just like a good comic writer, but he understood what comics were and how to make them sell. He understood the business side of comics in a way few creators ever do. And again, it's just like I said with like the whole understanding, like, storytelling stuff and understanding, the audience principle. He understood that. And it's like, we need a Jim Shooter now more than ever in this industry, and we don't have one.
I mean, he fleshed out these characters so well, and he focused on storytelling so much that for a while Marvel really developed these characters' personalities to a large degree. They weren't just paper cutouts. They were really in-depth characterizations and good dramatic stories, wonderfully written. Now I got in the business just as he was leaving Marvel, but I worked for like Carl Potts, the editor, Carl Potts, so Carl Potts had a lot of things to tell me that were coming from Jim, and it was about like, being the clarity of the stories, repeating, the backgrounds and show, and that sort of things to help, sort of establish those things as opposed to, one shot, and that's it. Then you move up, to figures. He would emphasize, making that background a character. And so that was some of the stuff that I was passed on to me that came from Jim. And I just think he was an outstanding, editor. So.
Well, I mean, again, this is just a guy who really understood the business side. I mean, because I'll say this without any equivocations, and I don't care anyone who disagrees with me, you're just wrong. Marvel Comics would not have become the powerhouse they were if it wasn't for Jim Shooter in the late 70s and early 80s. They would not be the power. They would not be the industry leader that they were. And I guess some might say they still are, although I don't see it. But they would not be that without Jim Shooter.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I mean, the characters are outstanding. I mean, Spider-Man and X-Men and all that stuff. They're incredible characters. But he surely did, give it a booster. He really, he put those rocket boosters on these characters and really helped them along to get them to a good level. So I can't disagree with what you're saying at all, James. Really, it's
I mean, I've heard the stories, about how he rubbed some creators the wrong way with his style of, editorial oversight. But I mean, for him, I think it was never about personalities. It was never about, creators, becoming superstars.
Yes.
For him, it was about these characters and making them what they can be. The characters come first, because without the characters, you have nothing. And he
Yeah.
understood this. And a lot of creators don't. They see the characters as a mouthpiece for their own things that they want to say and do. And he never saw it that way. And I think that's where a lot of the conflicts with some of those guys came in. And, and it's just something I know just from personal experience, like working for people, is like, your boss can't always be your friend. Being the boss means sometimes you got to make the hard decisions, and people aren't going to like the decisions you have to make. And you can't always be. We saw the TV show The Office. What happens when your boss is your friend? That's what happens when the boss is your friend. The boss can't be your friend sometimes, and you have to understand that. And that's something. Again, it's just I understand that those frictions were there, but it never showed in the work. He always made his direction and their abilities working together in tandem, as frictionless as it may have been sometimes, produced some of the greatest work this industry has ever seen and might never see again.
Yeah, I can't disagree with that. Another thing too, I would say that he was all about the characters, and I think one of the things that happened when he left was some of these artists became rock stars, and I don't think that's what he really would like to have seen. I think he wanted to see that he was always about there were certainly popular artists and art and writers for sure that people would admire, and they were kind of rock stars, but not at the expense of the character. That they were the character, and the story came first, and then yes, you can admire the artist, you can admire the writer, but when you start losing sight of it, and you just it's pinups and this is a great example. All the stuff that's happening on this cover, there's so much story here, and he emphasized that versus now everything's a pinup. Every single cover is a pinup. And
it's a poster. It's a poster shot.
Yeah, exactly. It's a poster shot. And there's no story. Where's the story? Nothing grabs me to take me and say, what's happening there? What's gonna, like this is like this mayhem here. We want to find out what's gonna go. It's obviously the X-Men are all going at it and trying to fight with Spider-Man. I want to see it. I want to read it.
Well, I mean, again, if I had to pick a single written moment by Jim Shooter that I thought was my favorite, it was from issue 8 of Secret Wars, when Spider-Man fights Titania. And here it is. He's she's on paper way stronger than he is, by multitudes. And yet he's slapping her around and just bouncing around and kicking her ass without even really looking like he's breaking a sweat doing it. And while he's doing that, he's not just beating her physically, he's beating her mentally, because he keeps talking smack on her the whole time. And it was just an awesome moment. Just like, this is the guy who understands the characters he's working on. Mm-hmm. That to me, that when people say, what is Spider-Man? You point to a moment to say, this is Spider-Man. That scene from Secret Wars number 8 with him fighting Titania, that moment, that is what Spider-Man is right there. That is the character.
Yeah. Mine would be the issues where he fought the Juggernaut to save Madam Web.
Nice.
Two-part series. And that was the one that stuck out to me, written, drawn by John Romita Jr. And it was just like, that was exactly what you're talking about, where Spider-Man's a character that, here's a character that is so much stronger than him, so much more powerful. And he just didn't give up until I don't want to spoil it, but I won't say more, but it's something that everyone should read.
I'm just glad that I did get to meet him. I met him in 2024 at the Summer Con out here, and I got to meet him, and I actually had a page of original art that he had actually worked on and got him to sign it, and he was blown away when he saw that. I think that's the one thing he didn't expect. He probably expected lots of books being dropped in front of him, but when I dropped a page of original art, he was just like, whoa. And it was from Fantastic Four number 296, the 25th Marvel anniversary issue. And he had done the plot for that with a script by Stan Lee, and then he showed me, he had this portfolio of stuff, and he flipped to a page, and he poked on it, he said, check this out. And I looked, and it was a personal letter to him from Stan Lee, telling him how great he thought that plot he wrote for that issue was. And I'm like, that's just so cool. I mean, getting a letter from the man who created the characters telling you your story was awesome. What higher praise could you ever hope to get?
Yeah, and Jim started on the ground floor too. He was writing and stuff. He was, wasn't like
over at DC. Yep. But again, he was 70. He was 73. Again, not very young, but maybe a little younger than we would have liked. But yeah, like the loss to the industry is incalculable. I mean, for different reasons, I say Stan Lee and Jim Shooter are the two best ambassadors for comics we have ever had, and we'll never see their like again.
Well, I don't know if we'll ever see those like again, but they were incredible. I mean, they were something else. And I mean, Stan Lee was larger than life. You know, a lot less people knew who Jim Shooter was, but I think Jim Shooter's contribution was in, like I just said, his just incredible, solid focus on story kind of thing. I think he took the reins from Stan and really went well. You know, did a outstanding job with it, with carrying these characters on, developing them. You know, making, and I agree with you, James, making Marvel something special.
Yes. Any thoughts, Pops, on Jim Shooter?
There isn't enough time to talk about Jim. Just to pull out some of the threads, though, I think that maybe he didn't expect and want artists and writers to become rock stars, but he kind of made it happen because he had so much faith in them. You know, he put Miller on Daredevil and had him faith, just leave him there. You know, had Claremont on X-Men, let's just leave him there and let them just do their thing and unpack it, and just kept defending them. And then, yeah, they were nearly broke. I mean, Star Wars kind of financially saved them, but he knew how to parlay that in the right way to expand that direct market and get it into more convenience stores and retail outlets and get it in the hands of more and more kids, just making customer after customer after customer. And he had just a nose, and sure, he rubbed people the wrong way by having high demands because he expected high results. And really a massive footprint in the industry that most people don't want to talk about because it was kind of divisive in the time, and people only hear negative stories. They don't hear a lot of the positives. But yeah, just a legend, just incredible.
Well, he really, James, you mentioned the business. I mean, he had to fight constantly against these guys who just wanted to milk these characters. The executives just said, "Oh, let's just do more of that. That's selling. Make 5 of those." Like, no, that's not the way it works. He knew story was paramount, and he also I think he got pretty good pay sometimes for some of these artists. He was telling these execs, like, "Hey, if we don't pay these guys, if we don't give them some kind of health care, the talent's going to go somewhere else." And he was right. And that's what has happened in a lot of ways. The comic companies don't want to, well, let's just get the cheapest artists we can, go overseas, whatever. And they're all of a sudden people are like wondering why aren't these comics connecting with anybody anymore? Well, because they don't, you know, they're not made by your neighbors, basically, you know.
Oh, they're not even the same artist in the same issue. They'll be you'll pick up a comic book and they're like, it's a different artist for pages 6 through 8, and you're like, what the heck is going on? It's like, it's completely bizarre. So
that never
none of that
works.
would happen under Shooter.
That would happen occasionally when there was a super hefty deadline, like, and everyone had all hands on deck, everyone just doing a page to get it to the printer. But that was not the rule. That was the exception, you know.
Yeah, like I said, he's a loss to an industry that you know, I think doesn't respect just how much of a loss that it is. And I don't think we'll ever see his like again in it.
Yeah, well, he was such a, I just say, he was just such a part of our era, you guys, our entertainment enjoyment. And so that makes him very special.
But we'll move on to the next here. And we got, this one will hit Pops a little bit here. It's artist Dave Taylor. Who is best known for doing some Batman stuff at DC. He did Force Works over at Marvel, and of course, probably best known for his Judge Dredd work on 2000 AD. He's one of those British guys. You know, he was born in Liverpool. He passed away at age 61. Kind of young. Kind of young.
Yeah, that's very young. Yeah.
But
lots of Batman.
That old at all. 60 is not old.
I picked this image because what I love is the symmetry of it all. You know, you got Batman in complete silhouette, but yet Robin stands out like a bell. And you got these green flames, but yet you still see all the detail in this masonry work on the building.
Yes.
You know, and I just love the symmetry of the image. And he really had a good eye for stuff like that. You know, how to really lay it out in a way to make it interesting to your eye and to suck you in. You know,
he had a lot of great work complimenting Alan Grant on Shadow of the Bat, which didn't really get a lot of attention back in the day. Shadow of the Bat was kind of like, you know, the one less that people thought of for the most part.
Yeah. He also ran. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, look at these
Batman
buildings.
Riddler was good. Yeah. Oh, everything was like this. It's just so
The
much
buildings,
stuff.
the statues, the textures on in the background buildings, incredible.
And I always go back to when I grew up on this, and this is what I was used to. Imagine when I don't get out, why I don't like it. I get so frustrated because this is what I'm used to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think would you guys agree that in some ways the computer coloring has made things more interesting, but also made it kind of worse because we're, I don't know, it just doesn't have the same vibrant feel a lot of the comics, back then,
It kind of lacks soul.
Something like that. Maybe it's the coldness of the computer. Yeah, just I mean, you can do beautiful work with the computer. I mean, I love coloring with it, but it's just like something happened to, because you're dealing with simple colors, flat colors that works for the superhero, but when you start to mold it and make it 3-dimensional, it looks a little silly. Like that's why whenever they make a movie, like they're gonna, here's Robin, and someone puts on a suit, in real life, it looks kind of silly. With the blue and the green and the yellow and the red, but in comics where it's line art with flat coloring, it's magical,
Yep. But Dave Taylor, like I said, he's an artist. He came in kind of like towards the end period of like my high point with comics. He was like one of those guys kind of got in just under the line. So like I knew his work, but I wasn't like, deeply into it like the way I was with say someone like a Jackson Guice, where I knew that guy's work.
Yeah.
Dave Taylor's one of those guys, he like kind of flew under the radar, I think, for a lot of people. And yet you can say, but when you look back at the work like this, you can see, he definitely had the chops. He definitely should have been working on, I think, some bigger things than he did.
You know what year this image is from?
Yeah, this one is from 96, 95, 96.
95, 96, yep.
He did eventually get to work on Judge Dredd 2080, which was like his dream, and just did great stuff there, of course. So,
yeah, but I'm not familiar.
He was a Brit, so all the Brits want to work on Judge Dredd.
Yeah, of course. But I'm happy that he was able to make a mark for me in my Batman universe, and then go on to actually fulfill his dream by getting to work on Dredd. And most Dredd, the art is always phenomenal. Dredd delivers issue in, issue out. Your pickup.
Yeah, I used to collect Dredd a lot when I was younger, as a beginning artist too. And what I would always do is when I went to the comic shop is I'd pick, or before that at the spinner rack, I'd pick my favorite art. That's how I chose a comic book. I chose by the cover and the interior. And so I was drawn to it's Eagle Comics, right? That had the Judge Dredd, I think. So I was drawn to that stuff, and I just loved it, but that's where I got Brian Boland, and, that's where I got introduced to him and stuff like that. So it was just so, and Dave Gibbons, and, was it Cam Kennedy? There was a lot of them that were really just that were working on those books that I just loved their work, man.
Yeah. Like I said, for me, he was just one of those guys, like he just got in on my line of like when I was in my prime of the comics. And, but he never really, again, just kind of like Tod Smith, he never really got that definitive run on a big league title, except maybe on Judge Dredd, as Pops noted, that might've been his big break. And he said that's what he always wanted. So, I mean, even if he didn't get the accolades of being like popular, in the industry, at least he got to work his dream job on the character he always wanted. So he at least had that going for him. So, but yeah, Dave Taylor, again, just another great who, should have done more, and now he's gone. Then we move on to our next here, which is a gentleman named Mort Todd. Now, Mort is interesting because his is not the usual shtick. He's more of like a small press artist who kind of worked his way into some of the big league stuff. He's done stuff for like let's see, what's I got here? He like did stuff for Fantagraphics and Kitchen Sink, and smaller publishers like that. He did was it Lloyd Llewellyn series from Fantagraphics? He did some work on that, but he ended up spinning off into the main stuff with Marvel and working on like Ren and Stimpy, the comic book they did Ren and Stimpy there. He also did some He also did directed 3 animated cartoons for Playboy, if you can believe that. So this is a guy who started out in the minor leagues, someone who like you would think is like just not that important, and yet he went on to do some bigger things. His biggest thing, of course, was in 1985. He became the editor-in-chief of Cracked magazine.
That's how I met him. Yep.
The sort of the Mad magazine.
To Mad magazine, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And he became editor-in-chief in 1985. But he's done, like I said, a lot of stuff. A lot of stuff dealing with like, pardon me, music and stuff like that. Like punk rock type groups and stuff. And
I recognize the name, but I'm not too familiar with his stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's worked with guys like Peter Bagg and things like that. I mean, again, a lot of the underground masters, he worked with some of these people and some of these companies and got his start there, but it ended up launching him into a larger role working in companies like Marvel. And like I found out he did an actual story in this issue of the Midnight Suns Unlimited, which, it's like, wow, when you're going from doing, small time stuff to all of a sudden you're working in the big leagues. That's always you got to have something going on for you right there if you're gonna make that leap, because a lot of guys don't get that leap. They start in the smalls and they stay in the smalls.
Are we looking at John Romita Jr., by the way?
That's a John Romita Jr. cover, but he did a story in the issue because this is like the Midnight Suns Unlimited, which is that giant size, like that, Dan, those giant size like 64-page books Marvel did in the 90s.
Yeah, well, I worked on Midnight Suns. That was one of the things I did. I did a story for that.
But Mort Todd, he was another youngin. He was only 63 when he passed.
Yeah, with that, James, I have to head out. I appreciate the inclusion, though, and it's a great conversation.
Well, thanks for hanging out with us here, Pops.
Nice to see you again, Pops. Yeah.
Got a few more to get to here, but I appreciate you stopping in, my friend. I said and reminiscing. Like I said, it's important we take time out, I think, once in a while to note these things for people.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, good to see you, Pops.
Great to see you, Dan. Yeah, likewise.
And
James, you guys take care.
We'll talk soon, my friend.
We'll see you.
All right.
Bye.
Okay. Yeah, I know we don't have too many more. My back is tightened up on me, so I can.
Yeah, so we don't have too many more. Only a few left here. Next up, we have is again another one. This is big to me because of what it is. Ron Friedman. He's an American screenwriter and comic book artist. He worked on Zorro. He's worked on Iron Man and Fantastic Four, G.I. Joe, Transformer cartoons, and of course Transformers the movie. He's heralded as one of the major rewriters who rewrote the script, because if you know the story of the Transformers movie, it went through like several different drafts. And then then there was a final draft, but they never really said who did it. But they said that Ron Friedman probably had most of the impact on that final draft of Transformers the movie. So I mean, like this scene right here is something that he probably had a hand in. The scene we all waited for as kids growing up watching the cartoon. This is the battle you wanted to see, and he had a hand in that. And it's like that just kind of,
Yeah, and he was 93. Looks like he was up there, huh?
Yeah, he was 93 years old. He was another one that done a lot of work. Like I said, in the animation world, but he also worked on the Marvel Action Hour with Stan Lee. Which was that Iron Man and Fantastic Four I was talking about. He did that. He appeared on Gilbert Gottfried's audio podcast and on Mark Evanier's video podcast. I mean, he's again someone who was kind of like in his little circle was very prolific. But like I said, but his realm was the animation world. But again, working on such properties like that, G.I. Joe and Transformers, Iron Man, Fantastic Four. Again,
yeah, those are so huge, especially more for your era than mine. I was I was a little bit too old for it, but I still saw it. I liked it. I thought it was cool and fun. I remember drawing up a few, Transformers to submit to Marvel, just because I thought that's what they were looking for, not because I really liked it. But I mean, not that I was a huge fan of it, but I liked it.
Well, and the G.I. Joe, I mean, he actually created the Real American Hero animated series, that first 5-part saga back in 1983 that kicked it all off.
Yeah, I remember that well. Yeah,
he created that, and then he co-wrote G.I. Joe the movie, the final story, which a lot of people call it, back in '87. That he did that, and he wrote, rewrote 65 episodes of the Transformers series before he co-wrote the movie. I mean, just, very influential in a lot of like 80s properties that I grew up with. And just, the 80s would not have been the same without him. That much is for sure. I mean, because I can't imagine what those movies would have been without Ron Friedman working on them.
Okay.
But he was nominated for multiple Emmys, and he actually won several WGA awards, which is the Writer Guild of America. So I mean, again, someone who got some of those laurels that a lot of great creators never get for their work. And and again, like I said, hearing the stuff that he worked on, it's not a surprise to me that he would have.
It sounds like he had a nice long career in animation for sure.
Yes, and again, just helping make these characters icons for ages.
Mm-hmm.
So we move on to our next one here. Now this one's a little different. This is a movie poster artist. This is I'm going to try this. I'm going to try not to step on the name. I'm going to try Renato Cesaro.
That sounds right.
That's and
maybe you want to roll your R's. Renato.
Yeah. They got that thing with those Spaniards.
Renato Cesaro.
They roll their R's. Yes. But I mean,
and he was up there. He's 89. I was 89. Okay.
Yeah, he's the.
I love 89. This poster. I love it.
This is probably his most iconic one, but he did plenty of them. He did A Fistful of Dollars. He did the movie poster for Solaris, for Flash Gordon. He did Octopussy's poster. He did Rambo First Blood Part 2, Red Sonja, Dances with Wolves. I mean, so many posters.
Really, really good. Now that I did a homage for a Death Dealer using this art.
Yes, I know you did that. I'll tell you that when I knew I was going to have you on, that's why I chose this image.
Yeah.
Out of all the posters I could have chosen of his that were iconic, I said no, I'm going to go with the Barbarian one here because that's the one Dan did.
That's right. So this is. I remember this when I was very young, and I had a print of it, and it was just spectacular. Conan's. It looks like Arnold. And the girl looks kind of like the girl, but I say a little more beautiful, perhaps. Very sexy, beautiful figures, just wonderfully done. Colors are great, outstanding. The armor's fantastic. Everything about it is really well done. Great composition, triangle composition. Though you can't beat those sometimes,
And again, he kind of follows some of the stuff I've learned from you about color theory. Like in the back, you got that bright red in the background, so you got cooler colors in the front.
Yep, popping those colors out. Yep,
to sort of push
color variation.
Forward. Yes, to push that image forward. And again, he worked with lots of great directors on this stuff. These producing these posters. Sergio Leone, Francis Ford Coppola. Franco Zeffirelli. Just great directors. I mean, he worked on a lot of great stories, and he also worked with Quentin Tarantino because he did. I think he did the. Because it was
Did you do the Dust to Dawn?
No. He played in the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He had a role in there. I think. Okay. Let me see. I'm just trying to go through my notes here real quick. He did some old school Western. So Quentin Tarantino he used some images of his in the movie Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay. Wow.
So he actually got him in that way. So I mean, just like I said, just so many great movie posters. He wrote the Never Ending Story. He did that one. That's another one he did.
Really? Well, that was a beautiful poster. Okay.
Yeah. Total Recall.
Oh wow. Okay.
The Last Emperor. Just so many great movies that he did the posters for. Again, like these are like memorable movies that none of us will ever forget.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, he helped make the movies iconic. And again, I love this because, I've always said something I miss in modern movies is posters that are like not just the cast standing around looking sullen.
Yes.
This is like artistry of its own kind. And it's something that's sorely lacking in stuff today. And just an eye-catching image like this. I mean, it almost makes you, even if the movie sucks, you wanted to see the movie anyway just when you saw that image.
Yeah, that was kind of typical back then. You'd have this incredible cover on the VHS cassette, and then the movie was terrible, but it still looked good.
Yep.
But although this was a good movie, this is a great movie. Yeah.
And he wasn't the only one who we lost in that vein.
Oh, yes.
Drew Struzan.
Man.
Yes. He was 74 when he passed. And is there anyone else who has done more for Indiana Jones and Star Wars than Drew Struzan? I don't think there is.
Yeah, it's
unless you want to give it to Spielberg and Lucas for doing more. Other than that, there's no one that's done more for those properties than Drew Struzan.
Yeah, movie posters, books, and he as an illustrator, he did beyond comics. His style is such a marketable style for all kinds of advertising, magazines, books. I mean, he could do anything with this style,
like I said, just like I said about Doug Sneed, remember at the beginning, I said how he had a thing where he got likenesses very well. I mean, look at this. You can see that is Harrison Ford. That is Mark Hamill. That looks just like them.
Yes.
And that's
still stylized and beautified with his skills.
Yeah. And so again, just another master of the form that just, just made movies and books, just from the image alone, I gotta get this. I gotta see this.
And there's Timothy Zahn's name, the writer that I drew the Star-Lord.
Timothy Zahn on what was it?
Star-Lord, yeah.
Star-Lord miniseries, yes.
Yep.
So again, just another great another guy who made the movies greater than they would have been without him, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And just just another loss for so many.
Yeah, I used to have a big poster of the Indiana Jones one. That's such a great cover.
That is probably his most iconic image, I would think, is the Raiders of the Lost Ark poster.
Yeah.
Yes. But we're getting near the finish here. We got Louis Small Jr.
Okay.
And now the funny thing about this is, no one, whenever I was referencing him to try to find out, when, how old he was when he passed, no one listed his age on any of the articles I found.
Uh-huh.
The only way I figured it out was they had said how he was 27 when he left the Army in 1991 to go do comics. And then, of course, the next year in 92, he did the Vampirella series over at Harris. And so I figured if he was 27 in 91, I just extrapolated time.
Right.
So I got the time. He was 61, Dan, when he passed.
I know. I'm looking at the name. I pulled up now that I have the list here in front of me so I can see the ages here.
Yeah. And, again, his Vampirella will be his calling card, but he did a lot of other stuff. He did some stuff for Codename Knockout over at DC at Vertigo line and some other things. But Vampirella is his calling card. And I picked this image in particular because right here, look who the inker is. It's Rob Stull. So the two guys who did the art for this very issue are no longer with us now. They both died this year.
Pretty young too, yeah.
Yeah, and both very young. He was 61, Stull was 58. Yeah, I mean, just crazy. But like you can see here, he's got a vivaciousness in his work.
Yeah, beautiful art, really.
Yeah, with Vampirella here. I mean, just it's easy to see why Harris grabbed him up so quickly to go do work for them on Vampirella. Looking at this, this image alone tells you why. It's got like a sensuality to it.
Yeah, well, look at the hair draped over the arm. That's really, really unique feature there. That's
I mean, and the thing is you look at the image and you barely even notice that she's got the handgun.
Yeah.
Wait, what? Oh, she's got a gun.
Yeah, handgun. Yeah. Right.
Oh, wait, what's that? And I think it's the expressiveness. Like, look at that look on her face right here.
Yep. That's personality. Yes.
That's and so I always liked his work whenever I saw it. I wish he would have done more, but like I said, he kind of kept to his lane doing, like the bad girl shtick. That was where he found his success, and that's where he kind of stayed doing stuff for that. So you never really seen him like doing Spider-Man or Batman or anything like that. But I would love to have seen him do something more, something greater. But yeah, he passed. He was the last one I've found out about who he just died very recently, back last month. So. And it flew under the radar. Almost nobody knew. Almost nobody knew that he had passed. And I'm like, see, so this is why I do these things every year, is because it's important to me that we note these people, because otherwise they may not get any notation at all. And that's sad when you got someone who's as talented here as you can see Louis Small Jr. was, and that nobody even noticed when he was gone. That's just a sad thing. And so like I'll remember if nobody else wants to. But the last bit we got here is I always do this because, some people, they may not create comics like you do, Dan, but they help comics in other ways. And these are some actors who are known for playing some very well-known comic book type roles, shall we say.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll start off with our first one here, the great Gene Hackman.
Yes.
I mean, his body of work is too far to go into. You got the Poseidon Adventure. You've got the Enemy of the State with Will Smith. You've got, The Quick and the Dead, probably my favorite role by him. In this 1995 Sharon Stone picture. I mean, just
how about Unforgiven? Oh, he was
Unforgiven. You've got the French Connection.
Yeah.
Just so many great, memorable
films,
characters and films, and yet for our generation, Dan, he'll probably always be remembered as our Lex Luthor in the Christopher Reeve Superman films.
He was so fun. He was an interesting character.
Well, I mean, and again, I don't think anyone's ever done Luthor as well as Gene Hackman in any other iteration. In any of the other people who played, Kevin Spacey's wasn't all that. This new guy who was just in the new film, he wasn't all that. When I think back to Luthor, I'm always going to think of Gene Hackman.
Yeah. Well, and Christopher Reeve too. They had a special chemistry on screen here that worked really well together. So
they really did. And like I said, he was so good at playing like a scummy, hard ass character. Yes. You know what I'm saying? Like even in movies where he played the good guy, he still had that rough edge about him.
Yes.
And that always shined through. Even in a movie like the Poseidon Adventure, where he plays a priest, but yet he's kind of a hard-edged priest. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? It's, just standing up to Ernest Borgnine and getting in his face and stuff like that. That's just how he was. And again, it's just that's what he brought to Luthor, that hard edge. Mm-hmm. I love the scene in Superman 2 when he's sitting there talking, and then Zod says to kill him, and he goes, "What? Kill Lex Luthor, the greatest criminal flame of our age? Extinguish the greatest criminal flame of our age?" That's hilarious.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was very sad when I heard he passed. But again, he was 95. Again, not exactly a young man. So, but this one was definitely more in our vein where we would feel it. Val Kilmer.
Yeah.
He was only 65 when he passed.
Yeah.
And of course, he played Batman in Batman Forever. And, his Batman to me was a little uneven. Like, I really loved when he was playing Bruce Wayne. I thought he got the Bruce Wayne character down perfectly. But I didn't quite buy him as Batman. And he wasn't helped by the script having to read lines like, "It's the car. Chicks dig the car." And it's like, no, that's not Batman. He's not going to say that.
Yeah.
But we'll always know him probably best for his role in the Top Gun film as Iceman.
Exactly. That's where he really.
And of course I remember him, from The Doors. He did a great Jim.
Lots of great movies. Yes.
He did The Saint, another good movie he did, and he even did good comedy like in Top Secret.
Yeah.
That was a classic.
That's right. I forgot about Top Secret. Oh my God.
The spy film that's a parody send up. Yes, it's just that was a great film. So a lot of great work that he did, and but again, he took a swing at Batman, and there's only a handful of guys who can say that they've done that.
Mm-hmm.
And so definitely a loss there. Then we come to now this one again, just like with Jim Shooter and Jackson Guice. This one hit me hard, and it hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan. I mean,
so sudden too. He was walking around.
You say that, well, he didn't really play a comic book characters, like Gene Hackman and Val Kilmer. No, but he kind of made himself into a comic book character.
Yes, I would say so.
That the Hulk Hogan persona is a comic book character in and of itself.
Yeah.
And,
well, he's using the name Hulk. It's like
there it is. And
somehow he got away with it.
Well, I mean, I don't think you can nail him for that because he calls Hulk Hogan. Maybe it's because of a full name, not just to call himself the Hulk.
Right. Yeah. Plus, something is a Hulk. It's not big. I felt the thing what goes on is they don't want brand confusion, and I don't think anyone would confuse the Incredible Hulk with Hulk Hogan. There was no. So I think that's why I was fine.
But yeah, I mean, I was like 10 to 12 years old, watching Friday night's Main Event. Stuff on TV.
It was fun.
And Hulk Hogan comes in, ripping the shirt. Like this image right here. This is the iconic image of him ripping the shirt.
Yeah.
With a smile on his face. He made handlebar mustaches cool again. That's how cool Hulk Hogan was. And then to go on and do stuff, like in the movies, like in television, like he worked on a couple episodes of the A-Team. He had the show Thunder in Paradise. He did his hit, the movies No Hold Barred and other things.
My first introduction to him was Rocky. That's when I first saw him
Rocky
in
3,
the theater.
yes.
I saw that and I was like, oh my gosh, who was this guy? He, I didn't know at the time that Sylvester Stallone was so small, but I was like, this guy's giant. He's monstrous.
He is. But
and he was a big guy, but it just wasn't as big as you thought he was. But
but it's just like I said, he was like a larger than life figure the way he presented himself.
I still remember a line in that movie where he's walking in and Sylvester Stallone says, "Why are they carrying him?" He's like, and what's the other guy? That actor? He goes, "They're not carrying him. He's walking." You're like, yeah.
Yes. But again, it's just another piece of my childhood, Dan. That's what this is. It's just losing pieces of my childhood.
A lot of our generation, that's for sure.
For Gen X, he taught us to believe in ourselves, to do the training, to say our prayers, to take our vitamins.
Yeah, he was a good guy.
He was the ultimate good guy, and that's something again we need more of today, I think, and we're not going to see anything like that. I don't think you're going to see another Hulk Hogan type character.
Yeah, maybe not. Yeah, maybe not.
And then of course the one that just died just a couple days ago. Again, another gut punch for me. The great Gil Gerard, Buck Rogers.
Yeah, Buck Rogers. Yeah.
I just and this one's special to me because my dad, he had me when he was 35, so he was kind of getting in the older side. And so like me and him were almost like from different generations, as it were. Yeah. And so like, we didn't have a lot of like entertainment and stuff we both would like. He was like big in the old, John Wayne and, James Cagney and all those guys. I wasn't really big on that stuff, but Buck Rogers was one of the few shows we could both get together and watch it, and we both enjoy it. Mm-hmm. And so I've always had a special place for Gil Gerard's Buck Rogers series for that, because they kind of brought me and my dad together on something that we could both enjoy. And
I remember the show. I remember the series. Now, did Gil do much else? What others is he famous for? Anything else? He's
done some other stuff, but like again, this just so overshines anything else he ever did. I mean,
yeah,
I'll show it right here. Here it is right here. Again, just like with Jim Shooter, I got to meet Gil Gerard back in 2019. Wow. And I'm so glad I did now, and I got to tell him, how important this show was to me, and, how, for me and my dad. And
right.
That was just, just great to actually get to meet the man. I mean, I'm not a
How old was he?
Well, here it was 6 years ago, so he would have been 76.
Okay.
And they were celebrating the 40th anniversary of the series at this point, because this is 2019 and the series came out in 1979. So for 40 years of Buck Rogers, and it was important to me to meet him. I'm not much of like one of those fame seekers, like where like someone goes, I got to meet all the celebrities. No, I'm not like that. There are certain ones I would have liked to have met. Like I said, I would have loved to have met Hulk Hogan, because he's just such an indomitable part of my childhood.
Right.
But like he was another one, was Gil Gerard. I just and when I saw the opportunity, I'm like, I got to meet Gil Gerard. I got to meet Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
And just he had that quality in his work. Like, again, looking at the series, he could be a great action guy and a good leading man, but yet he could also have fun with like the campiness of what he was doing too, and cracking jokes. Mm-hmm. Maybe even kind of laughing at himself a little bit in the process. Right. And I respect that kind of thing in a person, when they can laugh at themselves, when they can be a little self-deprecating about it.
And he had those really handsome movie star good looks,
Yes, he did. I mean,
he still looks kind of handsome here as an old man,
Yeah, but so you can see why they had to get such fine women on the show all the time to compete with him, because you can't have a good-looking guy like he was and have women that aren't up to this task.
He looks like he's really shaking your hand too. He's just
is.
That's not like a wimpy shake. You're getting
that is a strong grip. Let me tell you, it was. But yeah, Gil Gerard again, Buck Rogers. Just man, it's just so hard to say goodbye to those childhood memories.
That's right. Yep.
Growing up, but and there we have it. That's pretty much everybody there. So I think we
interesting show. Very, very respectful of all these people, and to acknowledge them is I think that's an important thing. So
yeah. That's what like I said, that's what this is all about. I
hope it's a smaller list next year. It's like,
let's hope you're not on it, Dan.
I know I don't want to be on it. Yeah, none of us wants to be on this list.
Aaron doesn't want to be on it either.
No, nobody wants to be on it. No.
But I want to take this moment here and thank you all you guys for joining us today. For even as somber as this is supposed to be, we still trying to find some laughs about things and talk about some great work from some great people who no longer are with us. But while they may be gone, the work will always be here to inspire future generations, and hopefully that's what it will do. And normally this is where I would do a little shill for stuff, but I'm not going to do that because that's not what this is about. I'll just say, look down the links below. You can find stuff for Dan and Pops and myself down there, and that's where you can find that stuff. But I want to thank my guests here. I want to thank Pops for popping in as he did. I appreciate that.
To see him. It was really great to see him.
Glad to have you here too, Dan. Yeah, and I'm glad to have you here too, Dan. It was nice to have someone who has the artist perspective on this stuff because I can come at it from the fan perspective, but I can't come at it from the artistic perspective the way you can.
Yeah, it's interesting. I enjoy the fan perspective. So it's kind of a good mix,
Yes, exactly. And that'll be it for this year. This is the final video I'm doing for the year. So you guys, I'll see you all next year. And as you go out tonight to celebrate the end of 2025 and the beginning of 2026, do so safely and carefully, and moderation and all that good jazz. Have a good time,
That's
but
right.
don't go overboard. And I will see you all you guys in the new year. And until next time, take care.